How much energy are we spending towards creating problems and drama and symptoms when that energy might want to be utilized somewhere else? Welcome back to the Village Sessions podcast, guys.
Bringing wisdom home.
This is the season 2 finale before we take an off season for the summer. Yeah. So this is an exciting episode to kind of go out. We're going to go out with a bang.
Yep.
Talk about some fun stuff.
Then have a baby. Yeah, I'm actually stoked about today's episode. I feel like it's a really fresh take on women in our communities and across the world, people listening to this, but women finding their voice. And something that we've been talking a lot about is just creativity, and something that Michelle brought up the other day. Reading a book, just had some drop-ins, and she was like, what if symptoms are a creative block? And me and Kori were like, whoa. Of course, like just the language, putting the language onto that, we know those things are connected, but the way that she lined it up and used language around it felt like a huge download. And so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about potentially the maturation that's required for you to know who you are and know what your voice is and be able to calibrate that and use it as your gift to the world and the impact to the world, and then the responsibility that it requires in a village setting. So what it means to be yourself and in a part of a village. First, we still want to talk about our favorite product.
Yeah, we're going to conclude this season by highlighting once again our product of season 2, our favorite blue light blockers. I have my sunset ones here. Michelle, of course, has hers on. She's got hers. I've got my 2 right here. And we thought it would be fun to interact with you guys for this last little chat about raw optics for the conclusion of season 2 and answer questions that you guys had. So one was Lauren. She was asking how we integrate the daylight lenses, like how we use these on a day-to-day level, how we integrate it into like our work with a screen. Do we use them outside? You know, just questions like that. Do you want to start with how you use them?
Sure. My personal usage for the yellow lenses is when I'm inside on a computer. That's when I'm using them. Otherwise, I do have a screen protector on my phone that is supposed to reduce some of the blue light. And then I usually, if we're inside during the day, I'll still have like a red filter on my phone. But for the most part, when I'm sitting, we've been doing a lot of building out of the vessel and the programs that we're going to have going. So I've been at the computer a lot lately, and I have my yellow lenses on. How
I like to use them, kind of the same. If I'm creating anything from my phone outside, I will not put these on if I have the sunlight, directly coming to my eyes. But my favorite way to use these is actually positioning myself next to an open window or an open sliding glass door where I have the sunlight coming in, and then I'll actually turn my body where I have sunlight coming in this way into the like perpendicular angle. So it's getting in my eyes, but I actually have my glasses on that are in front of my eyes and the computer screen. Yeah. Or if it's at night, that's when I switch over to these guys.
As the sun is setting.
Yep. Yeah, basically the same. I don't typically use mine a lot during the day with the computer because the area I sit in is very much predominantly sunlit. So I don't have that distortion of the lumens, like this is stronger than this, right? And when I am in that situation, I'll throw them on. My favorite way to use them is travel.
Yeah, that's what we were going to say too, is anytime we're traveling, the lenses just come with us.
Traveling, so airplanes, you got those like strip lights that are all around. I don't know that I've been in an airplane during the day that doesn't have some sort of that like bright light that's coming in. And then at night, it's not like they shut off all the lights. Not at all.
Especially if you sit in the front.
Yeah.
We had
in the cockpit?
No. I rode in the cockpit this last time.
I was going to say, wow.
Molly,
cool.
No, we just traveled overnight. It was only me and my son, and we were in the very front of the plane. So I guess the flight attendant left they were leaving the lights on. I'm like, do you have any of those eye masks? And the lady looks at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, I have my red lenses on, but your light is still like blaring at me and I can't fall asleep. Anyways, so
first world
problems. I'm like, you're wrecking my melatonin right now. I'm really trying to sleep on this plane.
You want to sleep. You want to sleep.
Yep.
And then Airbnbs where you're not in your
Yeah,
normal
totally.
light environment.
When you're traveling, being able to have access to these things, or lighting in the Airbnb or wherever you're staying in the hotel, taking a light bulb with you if you want to, or like putting a scarf or something over the lamps, that can all help mitigate. But raw optics, they're on your eyes, so it's just like the best resource.
That's our last little share about raw optics for this season. The code is Village in all caps. You can find that in the show notes. Let us know what your experience
Yeah.
has been. I know a lot of you guys have gotten lenses.
So many people have
Up until this
responded.
point.
Yeah, responded back saying that they've gotten lenses. So we would love to hear how they are for you guys.
Game changer.
Yep. Love
All right,
it.
let's get into it.
I'm going to put them over here just because we're going to
Keep
get
'em safe.
saucy.
Yeah.
So here we go.
The spice level is going.
We got 4 peppers today.
Yes,
no,
you never
oh
know
no.
where your glasses are just going to fly off in a conversation
it
like
could
that.
Take them off and just to
It could
prepare.
happen.
You have to take precautions.
I'm
So-
going to protect everyone
yeah.
at this point.
So, Michelle, you were reading a book recently. You'll have to remind me of the author's name. And then you had this download, and it just kind of kickstarted basically what we're going to talk about today. Can you share about that book and then kind of what that inspiration looked like for you?
Yeah, I was reading a book about something in neurolinguistic programming that was written by the creator of NLP, Richard Bandler. Richard Bandler was, I can't remember if he's passed or not, but his books were written in the 70s. And he took the initial research on eye patterns and created neurolinguistic programming. Big deal. So he had written a book on reframing, and he, I believe, was a psychotherapist. I'm not exactly 100% sure. I don't have his whole like CV memorized. I usually do about people. And this particular book has the reframe in it. And he spoke a lot to psychotherapists. So he was very passionate about, look, if you've got clients that aren't getting better, then that's a reflection on you. And why aren't they? And I mean, he was asking like amazing questions in the 70s about the therapy as an industry. And I'm like, oh, this man, okay, props, because I'm asking the same questions about.
And bringing responsibility to the practitioner.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. And also willing to create and use frameworks and modalities differently in order to see things begin to happen without a lot of intervention, right?
Break the rules.
Put the power back into the hands of the parents and the family and all that. That's been like my mission. He's talking to this group of therapists, and he says to them that if your clients are still having symptoms, it's because they do not have access to options. And it's your job as the therapist to help them create more options, like the things that are not in their conscious mind, the things that are in their subconscious mind, to bring those to their accessibility so that they can use them to get their outcomes and live their lives and move on, right? And I'm like, ooh, this is so great. Where are, the solutions, and why aren't they coming from within as well, from some type of a self-navigated, self-directed space? So that got me thinking again, is blocked creativity, a lack of options? So I began to think about people in my spaces, in my containers, and how they're showing up, what they're doing in those spaces. And when they leave, there are several things that happen. One might be that they never engage with the material again. It was just an experience. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Others treat it like the French fry the crow found in the parking lot, and now they've got a nugget to take and go do something with, which is not the intention at all. They signed a non-disclosure agreement for that. And then also people who get a certain amount of something from it, but it doesn't cross-correlate into anything else. So I'm like curious about like their intention coming in and what's happening. And so when it comes to creativity, like I know that my purpose on the planet is to help people find their pitch tone frequency in their message, what they are here for, what they are about in the world, and also if it's meant to be to monetize that and to bring that to life, right? But then to also place that in the context of what they're currently doing, if they've got families or a spouse or something like that, that be taken care of and that everything flow from that cared from space. So when I was studying Bandler's work, it really struck me that one of the things he was willing to do was the unconventional, literally willing to do anything to shift, flip, change, confront someone with something. And he was completely unattached. I mean, it was like radical for these therapists to watch him and like, that's not ethical. You're blah, 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 blah. I mean, he would get the drill down because he was willing to do something in the moment that absolutely turned that person's life around. I know I've mentioned this before. My mentor is NLP trained, and she's a trainer, also studied under Bandler, and she's very effective in the same way. So anyway, as you can tell, this story is not exactly about Bandler, and I did want to reference him because of his ingenuity, his creativity, and also based on how he took credible work and then created a framework that became the foundation to a massive revolution in therapy and coaching and all kinds of spaces. And he also has a very interesting story around protecting that framework, which we can talk about later. But I wanted you guys to hear that because when I saw that the connection between symptoms and lack of access toward options, which is their creativity, I was pretty dumbfounded. I was like, that is so true in so many ways. I feel like we see it all the time.
Yeah, we see it all the time. And something that had dropped in for us and something we were chatting about was just in the spaces, the type of symptomology that women will come with primarily around their children, right? Even this idea of mothers devoting their whole life to their children, being in service to their children, putting everything, all their energy to them, and then their children still having all of these symptoms. And I do have a question about where is the creativity? Like, is that creative for you? It potentially could be, but also if we're seeing a series of symptoms and you're staying in that loop, you're staying in the circle of them, the symptoms coming back around, is there more options and possibilities that you could access?
Okay, that reminds me, just to like tease this out further, Molly had named this observation that I was totally mind blown by, which was, and we talked about this in the Village Birth webinar, the Your Life is Your Prenatal webinar that we did back, I think a couple months ago. And it's this concept of there being an opportunity for a midwife to come into a family's space and support them in a really simple way that's very congruent with the family. And then whenever a money exchange is involved, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so like a money exchange involved or the professionalism involved, and then there being authority within the midwife's role or whatever. Oftentimes, so my observation is that if there's a very intact birth, labor and birth, and the midwives over there, like most of the time, they're just like chilling. All of a sudden, they think that they need to create a job. They need to create a job for themselves. And so I'm curious about that as a woman, as a birthing woman, and also as a practitioner. Where is their creativity in that? Are you creating quote unquote symptoms or I don't know, problems or whatever because of your block or lack of ability to be like, wow, she had all of the options available to her. She did the things that she needed to do. I didn't have to come in and do, right? We call it the drama triangle, like the savior, hero, victim triangle. And I didn't need to play that. I could have just allowed her to have her process. She had all the options available and she did it. She actually did it. And I didn't need to create a symptom or
totally.
a problem.
And you can see how drama, chaos, symptoms, issues that really don't
Might not have
even-
been issues.
Yeah. But it's this energy that we will create. And she mapped this over with the professional paradigm, the professional client paradigm, but something we even map this over to, because if it's existing there, it probably
Everywhere.
is existing everywhere in the field.
But especially motherhood.
So we kind of pose this question of like, how might this show up in motherhood? And it's just a question. It's just an observation of perhaps if we have this programming of, let's say, the martyr, we're running out our martyr programs in motherhood, or we're somewhere on the victim triangle
Totally.
in motherhood, we want to show up and save. How many times do we create drama, create symptoms, create chaos when there might not need to be anything at all? It can actually be so much more simple than that. So the question is, how much energy are we spending towards creating problems and drama and symptoms when that energy might want to be utilized somewhere else? And I feel like that
there
kind of
might be a
reveals,
creative outlet for it.
yes, yeah, there might be a creative outlook for it that might actually be a window into a block.
And then staying in the loop, right? So yes, maybe you're creating the symptom, whatever, but also your child might be showing you what you're creating. You might not think that I'm doing this to my child, but really the way that you have oriented your energy and your life and your actions are creating leaks in your family system and your greater system. And so your children are displaying that. They're very authentic in their display. That's what I like to say. And they will show you the feedback. Something we have in the vessel is the vessel process. And it's a really authentic way to calibrate yourself and know what is, one, have awareness, know where you're mismatching, and then also be able to recognize what are the feedback loops in my world. Children being like numero uno. Like they're the ones that will show you the feedback.
I think some of this goes back to, in one of our initial episodes, we talked about the difference between transformation and conformation. So conforming versus transforming. Transforming is the path less traveled.
Totally.
Always. Conforming is so hardwired in for us. It has this illusion of safety. It has this illusion of belonging. It feels good to know that we're like somebody else. I mean, we see this in so many different like microcultures, right? And the thing about that is that when we avoid or substitute the work of transformation, then the uniqueness never cultivates. And I feel like creativity is intimately connected with uniqueness. And unless you're aware of how you're unique and also what that uniqueness entails, then we don't really get to the point of learning how it expresses and the value of that.
Expresses through you individually.
Yes, as an individual, not your group and community,
Right.
you yourself. It took me until in my late 40s to where I was willing to own that and step out of the illusion of the safety that I had created and say, oh, I see that me not stepping into my creativity is literally going to kill me if I do not. The beauty of exploring, cultivating, curating, and developing your uniqueness is a big part of your journey. And also at the end of that is the thing, what you bring to the world. And there's a value connected to that. And that is what people are literally waiting for you to step up and do.
Totally.
And if you don't do that, you're not just hurting yourself, like putting yourself at risk for literally dying on the vine. You're also denying them the opportunity to have the thing that you're bringing to the world. It's massively profound. I firmly believe that our uniqueness wants to be cultivated. It does not want to be ubiquitized into conformity because I feel like it's a death sentence. I know I saw a clip recently about Brene Brown was talking about this in a clip from a while back, but in the grounded research that she does down in Texas, she was talking about how the drive to create is so strong that it's absolutely it is life-giving to birth it through.
Of course.
Naturally.
Creativity is birth, the
Yes.
spark, the
All
creative
of
spark.
it. Yeah.
Something interesting that we've observed in the online space, specifically in the winter season, is the correlation, and we've talked about this in five of our last episodes.
Yeah. This whole season.
Charge, human charge, being able to take care of your body in the winter months in a very ancestral way, a way that's very simple. So I know that one piece we've talked about in a previous episode was like moms noticing the prevalence of snoring and teeth grinding in the winter. So like these symptoms of lower charge, these symptoms of lower energetic capacity. Something else that we've noticed anecdotally is the correlation between lower energetic capacity in the winter for whatever reason, right? Like people aren't minding that as in such a vital foundation for themselves. And more of this kind of mimicry, parroting, somebody maybe sees something new and then they go and create that into their own material. We're seeing that more in the winter months than in the summertime, which is super interesting because in Rooted Families, we did this book club in the summertime where it was largely focused on addressing some of our creative blocks while these families are simultaneously working with Michelle's pyramid of stability, bottom of the pyramid, charging themselves up. And in the summertime, it's, we say this, but it's just easier. It's easier. It's just everywhere. Like it's the things that we don't necessarily consciously think about.
There's more light during the day in the summertime. So inherently there's more energy available to us to plug into.
You're probably spending more time outdoors.
Outside.
Your kids are probably spending more time outdoors just because of the nature of your schedule. And once again, these are more of the unconscious pieces. So in our experience with this book club in the summertime, more charge, more capacity that these women were feeling, and simultaneously addressing some of these creative blocks, it was profound what these experiences were, where people were finding the uniqueness of themselves for the first time in their lives and going, oh, this was always a part of me. And I think that's really interesting that was a summertime experience. And then as we go into the wintertime, I'm noticing more of that correlation between the lower charge and my example of how I would symbolize this or into a metaphor is literally like animals going through like a famine or through a period where they're trying to like scrounge for food. And then they see food over here that's been, harvested or hunted. And you guys know the animal kingdom. You guys know how it is. That. You go get that. There's more of a scarcity energy in the wintertime. And I think that we see this tracked into the human experience as well with how people are showing up in the world.
And then when you map it over to creativity, it makes so much sense.
It makes so much sense.
Not having the capacity available to run basic functions of the body leaves very little room for creative sparks, inspiration, being open channel, having a vessel that's unique and expressing uniqueness, right? So it makes, I think that's a massive aha moment, and it's a direct correlation between charge and capacity to create.
And we talk about this in Rooted Families too, just the honoring of the seasons. It could be appropriate for people to collectively conserve a little bit more. Maybe it looks like creatively outputting a little bit less in the wintertime.
Honoring your cycles and seasons.
Cycles and seasons. We've talked about this in previous episodes about how if you look ancestrally, there was actually like a time of conception and it was honored with the season. It was honored with how your body was already synced up to what was available around you. And so it's just interesting in the world of social media, digital products,
forcing, efficacy, production.
Yes.
Yeah. All those words, all the words.
So we're just noticing, we're observing, we're looking at the patterns and going, wow, this is really fascinating to see in the human experience.
One of the things that this actually makes me think of, like just tracking this with creativity, was an experience I had in chiropractic school. I was telling you guys about it earlier in 2017-ish. And if any chiropractors are listening, you know that there's certain programs and groups within the chiropractic paradigm that will basically give you their outline for your business, for your scripts, what you're going to tell your clients, how many visits, like how you're going to set up your packages for this and this and this symptom. And then on wellness care, this is what you're going to do. So basically, they have it all outlined for you. So I'm sitting through some of these groups and simultaneously reading Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic book. And I was like, whoop, whoop, these two things do not go together. Like someone's trying to give me a script and then Elizabeth's asking me to like be inspired essentially and be like, be hearing for God's voice and hearing for what's going to come through. And I was like, ooh, okay, no to this. And at the same time I had listened to a podcast and I can't even recall the exact reference for who it was, but the image picture stayed with me. And this guy was talking about creativity and he was mentioning this imagery of, say you're going to go on a hike and you're going to start on a trail and the first sign that says like the trailhead is this way. So then you're like, okay, I'm going to walk this way because that's what the sign says. And then the sign says, okay, you're 1 mile in. And the next sign says like, okay, there's 2 ways to get to the trail. This loop takes you here. This trail goes up there. So then you have you make a decision, right? You're going on the trails. But if you were to forge your own trail, what would that mean? There would be no signs. So if you want to go on your own path, you might see a sign of danger or like cliffs ahead or whatever, like warning signs. But you're going into the unknown. You're forging your own path. That is the creative act. That's the creative endeavor.
This reminds me, hey, y'all don't come for me. Y'all don't come for me when I say this, but multi-level marketing companies, this is why they developed a poor reputation, I would say, in the first, well, these have been around for forever. And I think things are changing in the way the companies from the top, I think, have noticed, in order to sustainably keep growing our company, we need to change the way that we are doing things. But when you said the script, I immediately thought of, there was a time period between, I guess it was like 2015 to maybe 2020, in which case there was this idea that MLMs were like preying on stay-at-home moms because they would offer like, hey, here's a way to make money. Here's your scripts. Here's how you sell. You do it exactly like this. This is what you're selling. And in a way, if the lower capacity, scarcity, lower charge signature was present in that mother's system, then it was actually a match. That's a match. And so I think that's why so many entrepreneurs were like, guys, like,
what is this?
You can go create anything you want. You know,
Totally.
you don't need to go put yourself in a box, because the way that these mothers were showing up at the time was, we all know the script. Yeah. Hey, babe.
Hey, girl. What's up, girl? In the DM.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, girl.
Is this too saucy,
long
guys?
time
Is
no
this too
talk.
spicy? So
Long time no talk.
Times are a changing, but
Yeah.
it's undeniable that season how repelling MLMs were during that time, because there was the stay-at-home mom that wanted to make money. And I think that the scarcity was a match for the void of the creativity involved there.
And you can probably map this over to a practitioner that you might have visited or you might have gone into that you maybe didn't resonate with, that gave you the script. They gave you this thing and then they have this plan. And it's not unique to you, but it's just a plan. And this is what we do. This is how we do it. And this is what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. Like that kind of thing. So I feel like it's MLMs, practitioners that you can get caught in these loops. I would call them loops. And you block yourself creatively. Nothing is going to come through that because you're not being who you are, what you're supposed to be doing, how you're supposed to be showing the world your gifts, right?
You don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know what your uniqueness is, in an effort to know, you'll try to be something that you're not, right? So we were talking earlier about there's actually code for this in the Western Bible, where the author talks about you trying to be the part of the body that you're not, or an additional part of the body that somebody already is. It's like, we don't need 2 of those. We actually need you to show up as you. And along with that went the spiritual gifts and all the other things that scripture talks about. So I think there's what we don't know. Also, I feel like there a lot of times is the, what do you want to call it? Like there's fear for the most part. I think I've got like 5 clients right now that they're at the precipice, and I'm like, I'm going to put my foot in
Your
and
dark spot.
push you off the edge, and you're going to have to fly. Put your squirrel suit on because
Yep.
we're flying. And happy to do that. Love it when I can do that with someone. And I'm like, you've got this, go. And because, it's all, they're talking about it, but they're not being about it. It's, I got this message. It's going to mess people up. I'm like, I'm waiting. Bring it. Show me your sauce. I'm here for it, And they're so terrified because they know that if they let that cat out, that their whole life is going to change, and they're not really ready for that.
My husband is a Joseph Campbell lover, and this is what he maps out is the hero's journey. And he says it is the known to the unknown, and then eventually you get back to the known. But in between those, there's arcs of answering the call. Are you really going to answer
Yeah.
the call that you know that you're getting, that the story or whatever the information you have is going to transform somebody? Are you going to become the person that can come through?
Yep.
You'll have to change. You have to flip your whole life around potentially.
This is why Michelle says your creation shapes you.
Ding, ding, ding.
Unconsciously, spiritually, we must know this before we actually put the foot on our own pedal, because we know that we're about to have to change ourselves. Our nervous system capacity is going to have a check, a calibration.
Everything.
And you can track this out beforehand and be like, yeah, you're going to completely transform through your creation process. And like, I would say the grand majority of people are absolutely terrified of that.
Oh, the fear is palpable.
Well, and then also, if you think about this in context of the village, this is the confirmation versus transformation
Yes.
talk, because the fear a lot of times is, I'm going to change.
Yep.
What does that mean for me and my community?
In my
Right.
community.
What does that mean for me and my family?
I'm
Right.
scared to be a lone wolf.
Yeah.
So what happens is a lot of people will show up as somebody else's how. So they'll take someone else's how, the how they do it, and they'll do it. It's not sustainable. I've seen so many people crash and burn because they take someone else's how, or they take someone else's information and they take it as their own and they bring it to their community. And let's not even talk about the copyright infringements, trademark violations, and other such stuff that goes with that. They're so proud of themselves because they're doing what so-and-so does, and they're doing it maybe even better, and and they've got people coming to them and all this stuff. And I'm like,
The validation of that too.
sis, that's really cool. And I know you're having a good time with that. And it's not sustainable. It's really not sustainable. And you're going to, let me help you by just going ahead and let's just jump over that piece. You don't even have to do that one. If we can just kind of dial in a little bit further,
Pull out what's
pull
yours.
it all the way through.
And the carnage that is not considered in that process is also the fact that anybody that comes into your space is going to have the same energetic experience that you're able to offer them. So if you have not developed and grown up yourself, if you're not offering them your highest version of yourself, that's what they're receiving from you.
Totally.
Absolutely, because you're not delivering the highest quality of what you're here to deliver. And yeah, that may be becoming part of your journey, and it really doesn't have to go that way. It really doesn't at all. And that's one of the things about that I really got a kick out of with hearing about Richard Bandler's story was that he develops NLP, which is like massive work in the world, right? And so when it was new and shiny,
Everybody's
Oh,
jumping on it.
boy.
Everybody's jumping on it.
And
they
y'all
want
know,
a piece of that.
Y'all know NLP, like even just the eye patterns of if you can tell if somebody's constructing a story or lying. Like even
Yeah.
lawyers are using this.
Totally.
My dad taught me NLP.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Amazing.
From a lawyer perspective.
Love your dad.
Right.
Also, Tony Robbins teaches it, or he speaks about it heavily,
Uses it
uses it.
in his work. Okay, so Bandler's got this whole thing, right? The reframe. People are so buzzed about it. People start setting up centers. They're practicing it. They're doing it, and he's got it trademarked.
Ooh.
And he comes for them.
He's shooting them down.
Boom, sniping.
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 Boom, pew 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 pew. Okay, so he's sniping,
He's like, you can't do it out here.
and he's taking them down. He's like, you don't have permission to do that. What's fascinating about that is, okay, props for this man who created this massive framework and also legitimizing it by trademarking it and protecting it. And he's like, no, actually, I'm creating a system for people to come in, have an experience, and get results. Who does it sound like? And
Not the woman sitting
Somebody's
on the other
name
couch.
starts
and-
with Michelle.
and it's just the epitome of a wisdom system,
Totally.
right?
This
Yeah.
is the protecting of the wisdom.
Yes. And okay.
We talked about this in the Transformation Isn't Free episode
Totally.
because you constructed this into like it literally the containment of the system is what makes it so powerful.
Right. That's the potency.
Yep.
Right. So when the crows come in and take up the shiny pieces and the French fries out of the parking lot, and then they're all like, "Oh, I've got something," and then they go off, and then they try to do that. It's like, it's what, and I'm like, the travesty of that is that the world's missing your voice and what you're here for, and the uniqueness of you and the beauty of you is actually what the world wants, not another bandler or another me or another whoever. They actually want you. And so I consider myself in a place of responsibility to do that with someone. So like my clients that actually go on and make bank, we spend more time deconstructing all of the programming and all of the things that come with them, the fear that keep them from stepping into that. Then we actually have to creating the framework. The framework is already done.
Yeah.
It's
within them.
It's within them. They've already done it. And then we bring that out, cultivate it, arrange it, and then boom, there it is. But it would not be the same in someone else's being with all of their stuff in the way.
I feel like women though are so women. I'm just going to speak for women in general. Because we were just at the regenerative practice workshop, and even practitioners, we feel so far away from creating our own framework or our own systems.
Yeah.
It feels like it feels like such a leap for people. And I'm like, why? I mean, yeah, the fear, but also what feels so big about bringing in concepts, observations, things that you observe, and then putting them together in your own unique way.
That's what I see with licensed practitioners is they're dying on the vine because they're conforming themselves to all the licensure standards, as well as, yes, there has to be minimum safety standards and things like that. And they're also so into the conformity with the style of practice, trying to, like you've seen it. I mean, I've seen it in dental conferences. So like everyone's lying about their practice. Everybody's lying about how much money they're making. Everybody's lying about how great things are. They're freaking lying.
And then their families are falling apart.
Their families are falling apart.
Totally.
And I'm like, okay, so are we done lying yet? Can we just create something sustainable and be happy?
Well, we talk about that in Rooted Families probably every single webinar.
Can we just talk about it every single
we
freaking time?
keep talking about
We
you guys.
basically begin every webinar with first step, honesty. First step, honesty. First step, honesty.
And then second step, tell me about your light situation.
Yep.
That's the second part.
Be honest, and show me your homework. What you've been doing? What you've been doing in your families? So I think the honesty part is huge. And then also another thing that you track, Michelle, is the developmental age in a lot of collectively where we're at with women. And so we talked about this in 2 episodes already. One was the fashion industry and rapport. And you were like, mimicry and copying people is actually a very young developmental age. It's the little kid. And so what do they find themselves in? They find themselves in situations where they're getting in trouble and they're like staying in that kind of state. Or you say,
I was just gonna say, like,
is this too spicy?
No, I love this. Like, get me in trouble, daddy. Like that feeling, like, oh, daddy's watching.
Nope, leave that in there.
But that's what you wanted. You wanted your daddy to discipline you.
Yep. You wanted
I'm using
discipline.
daddy, but you can insert mommy too. It just depends on what you prefer.
You wanted the
Please do not cut this out.
I will.
Okay, good.
I'm like sweating
Even Kyle's over here falling off his chair.
Yeah.
It's okay.
that the getting in the trouble and the discipline is, this is how Michelle would say it, is like how you would feel yourself in the world. if that's a match for your nervous system, if it's a match for developmentally where you are and how you've basically like learned your lessons, you're going to continue to do
It's
that.
a giant move away from strategy. It's like, okay, you want a spanking. Let's
Michelle's
unpack
like,
that.
I ain't gonna spank you, sister.
I'm not here for that. And I see that it's the little girls who they'll take from the container. We see this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm tracking a couple right now. My attorney and I are. It's actually comical to watch.
Totally.
Because I come from, I'm boomer Gen X cusp, right? So boomer Gen X cusp is still like we were schooled in the rigors of academia, right? So papers that you wrote had citations, you did your homework. There wasn't really common knowledge. You had to defend if something was considered common knowledge. Everything had a root and you had to find it, right?
And now we have millennial and Gen Z, where we were talking about this. Social proof means more to a lot of that archetype of age than like something that would be found in literature, right?
Right.
So it's the age of the internet. Everything's common knowledge, right?
When someone comes in and they cherry pick or harvest the coins, the shiny stuff, and they take it out of the system, they've, number one, violated the system. We talk about this. That's what the kapu was back in Hawaii back in the day.
Yeah.
And there was retribution for that.
100%. Your head would be cut off. You
Pretty much.
You weren't dying
You were
legally.
dead.
You were dead
Yeah.
physically.
So what happens is and I see this happen a lot because I'll catch people, and like even this morning, there was someone, she's like, I don't understand why I'm not making any money with this. So I went back and listened to her stuff and looked at a lot. I said, sis, you're trying to talk like I talk when I'm in our group. I said, and those aren't your clothes. That's not your tone. That's not your frequency. That's not the thing that you're here to talk about. I said, that's why no one can hear you. I said, so let's find your voice, right? Let's find yours. And then the other thing would be fear. People are afraid to step up and actually say the thing. It's like, say the weird thing. They won't step up and say the weird thing because of the fear. And I'm like, the radicalness is what's necessary right now.
I think, and I was going to say, this is something I really respect about you and what I've learned, I feel like so deeply, like deeply in the last 3-4 years, is honoring who is helping you become who you are.
Oh.
So that is the wisdom system. That's the tradition in the village. That's the tradition in indigenous culture, is honoring, I'm going to say the elder, but not that you're old, but just the elder archetype, the matriarch archetype, honoring her for the things that they can see in you. And then also, respecting them enough to be able to give you the credit, right? Give you the credit that's due. Say, this is where this came from. This is who taught me this. This is how I've come to know what I know. We forget the honor. We forget the respect. We forget everything's for everyone, right? Like, it's just like, it's on the internet. So it's
Common knowledge.
Common knowledge. It's intuitive.
Yeah.
It's intuitive.
And what's interesting about common knowledge is, like, having written a lot of academic papers now, literally all of the frameworks that I use, I'm writing about in academia. So I'm beginning to publish within academia these concepts, these connections, and some of these things are bridging disciplines. Like, they're not even thinking about how certain things go together. So,
well, this is your history, right? You did this with the myofascial and lip and tongue dye world as well.
Yeah, back in the day. And now it's common knowledge.
Oh,
Get it?
interesting.
Yeah, now it's common knowledge. This happened one time with a quote that I said at an international tongue tie meeting. I talked about how breastfeeding is a vital sign.
Oh my gosh, we see that everywhere.
And now everybody's like, oh, it's just in the field. I'm like, no, sis, if you follow that like all the way back, like that was 2014.
That came out of my mouth.
Yeah. And so
I said that.
But at the same time,
or your life is your prenatal.
oh, how about that?
Just saying. Yep.
Yeah. And so those kinds of things, it's like when you're working within academia, you don't get to go common knowledge with it. You actually have to trace it back. And that's one of the reasons I appreciate just some of the burgeoning fields in academia, is because they're bringing that discipline and that rigor to these concepts and actually backing them up, which helps everyone.
There's a maturation element to it.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it
There's
helps
a developmental
developmental.
piece there where you're willing to put the things that you say to the test. I was absolutely laughing at a comment someone made about the reel that went viral. She said something about that's not scientific. I'm like, sweetie, science is about asking great questions.
Absolutely.
And then blah, blah, blah. So, it's like, did you not understand that is
Biology 101.
okay, that, scientific process is about the question. It's actually not about only speaking about what's proven in the literature.
Absolutely.
Biased literature.
Good biased literature. Okay, peer-reviewed biased literature, owned literature. Anyway, but that's a whole thing too. So one of the concepts I love is some people might be listening to this and thinking, oh, well, this is just gloated and overblown or whatever. I'm like, no, this is the difference between gravity and hubris, right?
You're going to have to explain that one to me. What's hubris?
So what happens is whenever I confront someone with copyright infringement or trademark infringement, my purpose and goal in that is to open the door to helping them find their voice.
100%.
I'm using the law as the stop point to hopefully get them to ask a question.
And then also be in relationship
Yes.
and also be responsible to their village.
Yes.
Show up as yourself.
Yes.
Because that's what your village needs.
Yes,
If
because
you're trying to create a village.
you'll die on the vine if you don't. And then nobody's going to have your gifts and goodness and all of those things.
Then you pass it down to your children.
Yeah. And then there's also this, I think, in the general population with people who want to do something really great in the world, and yet nothing really is opening up or feeling very like they feel like there's not any opportunities for them.
Capacity.
There's that human capacity. I always go back to the human.
Yep.
Start there.
Yeah. Open your physical frame. Open your opportunities.
Exactly. But there's also this divine element that is your incarnated being that also is taking the path of your growth and development and mastery. And then that expresses to the world. And so when there's shame attached to that, or they feel diminutive or not enough, then to me, that's just the opportunity beginning for you to step into curiosity around that, because it's not going to look the same for everyone. It's okay. We just need to find out your way and we'll figure it out. And then life's going to get so much easier.
That's why the sentiment that we hear reflected and echoed probably more than anything in our offerings is it's this simple. It's this simple.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
They're like, no way. Well, we were even on a podcast with Midline Revolution. This would have been 2 years ago now. And the ladies just kept being like, oh, it's that simple. And we were like, yeah, just get outside. Get outside. Put your boobs in the sun.
Yep.
Be around a fire.
Yep.
Eat some food that's local.
Yep.
Oh, it's that simple. She's like, yeah.
Yeah. And if you guys are looking to basically begin your experience with any of our offerings, we'll have those in the show notes. And we will probably come back maybe in the fall, I guess like early fall or late summer. But we've got the vessel that is going to be
Launching here in April.
In April. So exciting.
This is the place and space where, say, for example, you're a woman, you may have a child, you may be married. All of the details don't matter, but you really don't feel like your age. Like maybe you feel like you're 30, but you really feel 15.
The biological, the chronological, the developmental.
Right. So I have a process that calibrates those. And that's one of the things we're going to be doing.
And you want to be there for it.
Yeah, you do. You 100% do.
So that's the mother channel. Then we have the mystic channel.
Yep, the healer.
This is the healer channel. This is for all the practitioners. And it's for practitioners to come in and have their own experience. It's not for them to come and take what we're presenting and teach it. It's for them to have their own experience and really calibrate themselves so that they can take their clientele further.
Right. And then the matriarch, she's the headed toward the elder, right?
She's the lost one. in today's society.
She
right?
is. She's not to be found.
Not to be found, and she's also forgotten.
Yes.
So I'm so happy that there's going to be a recovering of this with your work, and a cool opportunity for women now, the mothers of today. They will eventually be the matriarchs. And so, what are the developmental pieces that need to come online for that wisdom to be pulled through?
I know it's been a long time coming, curating and setting so much intention to that. So I'm stoked for you guys. So that's their offering together. We have the Village Birth offering, which is going to be, so when this comes out, our method, the resourced and rooted method, into a module organization that's going to be added into the Village Birth offering. We already had a live workshop where people got to kind of have an experience with some of this. So phase 1 is talking about what it looks like to be resourced, pregnant, going into birth, like what that looks like for you to actually have the energetic capacity to create the experiences that you want to create. Phase 2 is mapping out our official birth archetypes. And
So stoked about these.
we named our 4 birth archetypes that everybody can place themselves in and even see maybe where you've been one in the past. Maybe you've already developed onto a next one.
And it's the story arc. It's the story arc of birth and how a woman comes from here to here. So
And it's we give you the
maturation.
bridges.
We give you the
Yes.
bridges.
The things
the
you can do
developmental
to get
bridges.
to one place to another.
Yes, we basically give you prompts on beginning your experience to be able to actually match, who you want to show up in the world through birth and then beyond as. And then phase 3 is mapping all of that into the body. So you've heard us say this phrase before, but the ability to create capacity and opportunity will show up in your physical body. And so we use the global bowspring, and we have formulated it into a method that allows you to experience more possibilities in your body preparing for birth. It goes through the 3 phases of labor. You will integrate that into your entire pregnancy, because the more that your body knows that on a conscious, unconscious level, the more that
Exactly.
it's like just muscle memory. It's just muscle memory at that point.
It's
for
the
your birth.
preparation for birth.
It's the prep. That's going in as an update. And then my postpartum experience, postpartum bow, will be updated later in the early summer.
That is an endless well of resource right there. The birthing.
There's so
Man,
much
there's-
value
Why are we
in the
putting so
Village
much in it?
Birth. It's like, it's another just
There's two entire workshops. And so that in and of itself, a lot of women
3.
will. 3.
3.
Oh, yes. The
workshops.
Village Birth. Oh, yeah. The Village Prenatal.
I would
Yes.
say that the Village Birth is probably the perfect example of the way that we are helping women create multiple subconscious options for them to pull and choose from throughout whatever birth experience you have. It doesn't, the experience doesn't matter. We're not talking about where you do it, who you do it with. We're talking about you in the experience having access to a multiplicity of options
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And getting the outcome you
and
want.
getting the outcome you want. Totally.
So that's the Village Birth. And then, of course, rooted families. Do you want to talk about rooted families?
Yeah, rooted families. So we keep adding value to that one. I mean, how many webinars are we up to now? I think we've got one more coming up.
We're
The
about to
webinars are
film-
gold
Yeah.
in there.
When this comes out, our next webinar will be in a few days on April 4th, I believe. And that'll be number 10 so far. And then
Yeah.
they're just going to keep rolling.
Yeah.
And then you got the hot seat women in there.
Yep.
So you
Yep.
want to be calibrated. Ladies, get in there.
We do hot seat. Yeah. I mean,
Wanna be
I will
asking about your
totally
kids.
laser in. And
I'm
you
like,
know,
I don't come up on the screen.
no,
Live.
Molly doesn't. She sits in the background.
I'm listening.
She's like,
I'm listening.
There's a
I'm like, did they
Twitch there.
just say that?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. To the point now where people are sending me like memes and reels and stuff of like, oh, this is what it's like when Michelle gets spicy
Yep.
and rooted families. Yeah, the requirement is the show up. It's like show up, the wake up, show up, grow up, the whole thing. And we doing the up thing there. And I hold container for that. It's like you have to show your work. You have to report. You have to show me what you're doing and tell me about it. And yeah, we will totally like laser snipe that and call people back into their process so that they can get their outcome. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
And I love the community that you guys have actually created in there, because there's probably more more wins shared in that group than any group that I've ever been a part of. Women coming and families coming in and talking about their processes and then being like, I can't believe what was the last one? I just did candlelight dinner and we turned the overhead lights off and my kids sat at the table and whatever.
Had a conversation.
I'm like, this is gold for people to see this in their field and watching other families have their outcomes being met by something so easy. And it just opens even your possibilities even more, right?
Absolutely.
When you get to see, to believe other people around you doing it.
We've had questions from you guys about Hoppa. Do you want to give an update about Hoppa?
So Hoppa's in the works still. We are sampling our active wear, our stretch line, and it's taking a little bit longer than anticipated. My original, I would say, launch date was spring of 2025, which is now, but that's not happening. So we are in the works, and I'm just getting it right. I'm taking my time and taking it slow. There's a lot of anticipation, which I'm really appreciative of. And when it comes out, it's going to be the things that I would wear and I like ethically stand behind, and the things that I want to have on my body.
Our kids are joining, little stories joining us for
our
this
season
last little minute.
finale for the last minute. Oh, Koa's going to be on production. Yes.
That's right.
My guy Koa.
That's what we do.
Anything else that we want to conclude with?
I'm excited for season 3. I'm excited for people to take what this season felt so transformative, and it felt like so many actionable steps for families. So excited for season 3 to continue that and then to see the impact that it's having and continue on.
Totally. You can find everything in the show notes. We will continue to post content all summer long on the IG page. And yeah, that's it. So we'll see you guys season 3. Have an amazing summer.
You'll be with your baby in season 3.
I'll have a babe right here next time you see me.
Yes.
Right.
See you guys then.
Bye.